For us, boating is, the boat is just the vehicle for us to get together as a family. It's not, I mean, the boats are amazing and the history of the boat is amazing, and we additionally get to have this opportunity for us to all hang out together. And so I think that's the thing. The kids can rhyme off a few things about the boat, and they know a little bit about the history, and they love going fast, and the wood is different, but we get to do it together. And I think that's one of the key elements, is that, you know, Cleary was not a sea-doo. It was not one of these things. It was a solo transporter on the water. It was something we had to do together. And I think that, you know, that's where some of the most important memories have really emanated from, is the opportunity for us to do this as a family.
Back a little bit in history, because that boat has a very interesting provenance in terms of who it was built for originally.
Well, it was originally built for one of the Ringling brothers. Spent its first 30 years in Sarasota Bay. Had a couple of owners down there, and then I guess it was brought to Lake Muskoka after that, and that's where I took over.
Well, it's always good to hear about a boat that's come back home to Canada.
Yeah, came back home to Canada because it's a Ditchburn and it should be here.
For a long time, we kind of exhausted our resources, so we just had a kitchen chair at the front, an orange kitchen chair. Finally, in 1988, we took it to Duke's. Its people put it back to the condition you see it in now.
The Nanawa's got a couple of distinctive characteristics as to each of these boats. In the front, there's a plaque that a guest to Wistow Island, where Nanawa spent most of its life before I was fortunate enough to purchase it. The plaque says Nanawa 2. There's a whole another story about Nanawa 1, but Nanawa 2, but they misspelled it. Naniwa with an I is a Japanese word, evidently, I don't speak Japanese, but a Japanese word for fast wave. And the guest had given this plaque. It was a terrific gift, but it had Nanawa with an A in the middle instead of an I.
Rainbow 9 is a very interesting boat that has been in Muskoka since the early 1930s. The history of Rainbow 9 in Canada is that it was part of the stable of rainbow boats owned by Harry Greening, really what they call the premier sportsman in Canada.
Buying the boat, decided that the original motor, likely a Stirling, threw too much oil and made the boat dirty and smelly. Now, when he first had that engine put in, they took it out for sea trials. They located it about 6 inches too far forward in the boat. So as they accelerated, the front splashboards caught the water, and it became like a submarine and started to plunge down towards the depth. So he immediately turned around, took it back to the shop and said, "You idiots, do it again."
One thing that was interesting, Hurricane Hazel hit Muskoka on October 15th, 1954. And it a lot of winds and so on. It tore open the door of the boathouse that this was in, and the boat got away, and it vanished. And my aunt went out the next day, and she went all around the shore to try to find everything that had floated out of the boat. So she got the oars and nearly all of the seats. The front seat back still original. The seat bottom is not, because there were probably tools in it, and it probably, you know, sank or something, but it wasn't in the boat. The boat was at the bottom of Lake Rosso all winter. Nobody knew where it was. Stan Carr was out canoeing in the spring, paddling along out in front of Gibson's place, which is about, you know, 1/10 of a mile from our boathouse. And he looks over, and there it is. It's down there. It's in 20 feet of water.
Built the boat with boat match planks so that they always matched as they correspondingly went out from the center line. The kind of hardware that was used on the Manette Shields boat seemed to be superior to any other. In fact, I remember one year I was asked for a tour of the boathouse by a gentleman who was a former editor of the Rolls-Royce magazine, And he found me because he'd heard that Minette Shields used hardware from a Rolls-Royce car. He verified that yes, that really was the case as he examined the boat. It seems that, in fact, Bert Minette did build a boat for Henry Royce. He did have a visitation time in Muskoka.
Let's talk about the Liberty aircraft engine that powers Helena. It's a 1600cc cubic engine, develops over 400 horsepower. Developed as the engine to power the aircraft that the United States decided to use when it entered World War I. There was a sudden rush to join that war. They put two engineers together and 6 weeks designed the engine and had a prototype. They drove it by truck to Denver, Colorado, so that it could be tested at an elevation of 5,000 feet.
That was the first year that we had Dukes, and they only had 2 employees, Lionel Cope and Ron Butson. You know, the normal procedure, you strip the interior out of it, so all you're left was a big canoe. And he and I turned that boat up on its sheer, and he just put the chain on the, I guess he maybe had taken the garbage out of it, or he just cut holes in the garboard planks and put a chain, 2 chain hoists, and he and I rolled that thing right up on its sheer, 38-foot boat. And he blocked it, and then he carried on, put the keel in, and part of the bottom of the transom and stem.
Now, a great story about the hardware was that my father had all of it in the back of a car. A Pontiac, I think it was Chevrolet, black Chevrolet. It was like the police cars back then, but it was in the back there. The car was stolen, never recovered, and every piece of hardware was lost. So he spent that winter coming up here and going to Hideaway Island, and he went to Charlie Wheaton's. That's how he met Charlie Wheaton, and he made patterns for all those fittings, because the original patterns were lost in the fire at Minette Shields.